Snow lashes against the Montana pines, and inside a dim cabin, a German shepherd named Kodiak freezes. Every muscle locked, every instinct on fire. Two terrified women huddle near the dying glow of the stove as a shadow moves outside, slow, deliberate, hunting. A single breath fogs the window, then another. Someone is inches away, listening, waiting for their chance to strike. Cole Maddox, a retired rescue operative battling his own ghosts, knows one truth. Whatever stands on the other side of that wall didn't come to negotiate. A metal brace groans, the logs shift, and a hidden red sensor blinks alive on Cole's gear. When Kodiak steps forward, silent but certain, the night changes. This is no longer a cabin, it's a battlefield. And what unfolds next will make you believe in divine timing, loyalty deeper than fear, and miracles hiding inside the quiet choices of broken people. Before we begin, tell me where you're watching from. Drop your country below. If you believe no woman, no child, and no loyal animal should ever face darkness alone, hit subscribe and share this story with someone who needs strength tonight. Frost Bridge, Montana had a certain look to it in winter. Hard, colorless, and stripped of anything unnecessary. By late January, the town usually surrendered beneath a thick sheet of snow. But tonight the cold hit in a way that made even seasoned locals stay indoors. The storm rolled in fast from the northern mountains, dragging heavy wind through the pines and piling drifts against shuttered storefronts and abandoned pickups on the roadside. The sky hung low, swollen and gray, as if threatening to collapse onto the valley. Visibility had dropped to only a few yards. Air stung like needles, the kind of night when even wildlife disappeared, the kind of night when mistakes killed people. Yet one man and one dog moved through the whiteout with purpose. Cole Maddox, 40 years old, walked with a controlled stride, his boots breaking deep into the snow. He had the frame of a man accustomed to physical labor, broad shoulders, strong back, movements steady and deliberate. His winter jacket was worn but well-maintained, patched at the elbows. His face showed the weather, rugged, with sharp angles and a permanent shadow of stubble. A faint scar crossed his left brow, nearly hidden by the hood pulled tight against the cold. Years ago, he'd been a U.S. Air Force pararescueman, trained to find and extract people from impossible situations. Those experiences carved a kind of quiet discipline into him. He wasn't unfriendly, just reserved, shaped by the weight of what he had seen and lost. Beside him trotted Kodiak, a 4-year-old German shepherd with a strong, muscular build and a thick double coat suited for harsh climates. His fur was mostly black with streaks of tan around his legs and face, and a dusting of snow clung to his back. His ears stood tall, constantly adjusting to sounds under the wind. Kodiak had once been part of a mountain search and rescue K-9 team, trained for avalanches and lost hikers. His gait was confident but alert, each step deliberate. What made him unique, what Cole trusted most, was his ability to detect distress before humans had any clue something was wrong. Tonight was supposed to be a routine training session. Short range, nothing complicated. Just drills to keep Kodiak sharp. But as the storm worsened, the forest grew unfamiliar, reduced to shadows and blowing snow. Cole adjusted his headlamp, making sure the beam cut forward as far as possible. "Let's circle back soon," he said, partly to the dog. His breath fogged immediately in the bitter air. Kodiak lifted his head, nose testing the wind. Then he stopped. Cole noticed instantly. Kodiak didn't freeze unless he sensed something out of place. The dog's tail lowered, and his body shifted into a rigid stance. "What is it?" Cole murmured, slowing down. Kodiak inhaled sharply, his chest expanding, his ears locked forward. Then he broke into a sudden sprint toward the slope ahead. "Kodiak! Hey! Slow down!" Cole pushed forward, his boots slipping slightly, as he forced himself through the deep snow. The dog didn't respond. He was tracking something with full intent. The wind roared, muffling the sounds of Kodiak's movement. Cole leaned forward, using his hands at times to push aside branches crusted with ice. The terrain slanted downward. He slid the last few feet, boots digging for traction. Kodiak stood ahead near a ravine wall, his body tense, head raised toward a narrow gap between two boulders partly buried in snow. He growled, a low, urgent sound. Cole followed the direction of Kodiak's gaze and felt his stomach tighten. Two women hung several feet off the ground, suspended by thick rope tied around their wrists and hooked over a fractured beam lodged between the rocks. Snow had built up around their legs, almost burying their lower bodies. Their coats were frozen stiff. Their faces were pale, lashes coated in frost. They looked like abandoned mannequins, except for one unmistakable detail. Their chests moved, faintly, weak, shallow breaths. Cole reacted instantly. The training took over, clearing away shock. He dropped his pack, pulled his gloves tight, and approached the first woman. The rope had been cinched viciously under tension, cutting into the skin of her wrists. He tested the beam overhead, unstable, likely only held in place by the ice surrounding it. The first woman appeared to be in her mid-30s, tall and lean. Her long, dark brown hair was tangled against her coat, and her complexion, normally olive-toned, had turned ashen from the cold. The angles of her face suggested determination, even in her current condition. Defined cheekbones, a strong jaw, lips split from cold. Later, he would learn her name was Evelyn Shore, a specialist in digital youth safety programs, but for now she was simply a victim on the edge of freezing to death. The second woman was shorter, maybe late 20s, with soft auburn hair stiffened by ice. Her face had a gentler structure, rounded cheeks, a narrow nose, light freckles faint beneath the frost. She looked fragile, yet the tension in her brows hinted at someone who had fought hard to stay alive. Her pulse, when Cole checked, was faint but present. Her name, he would eventually know, was Tara Quinn, a volunteer nurse and crisis response worker. Cole's breath came in sharp bursts. "They're alive," he said quietly, mostly reassuring himself. Kodiak paced below, scanning the area with quick, sharp movements, ears rotating like radar. Cole trusted the dog's instincts. If there was immediate danger, Kodiak would give him a different signal. He pulled a compact cutting tool from his pack. The blade sliced through the frozen rope slowly, every movement controlled to avoid dropping the women abruptly. When the rope snapped, Evelyn sagged forward. Cole caught her, lowering her carefully to the snow. Her skin was dangerously cold, late-stage hypothermia cold. He checked her breathing again. Still there, barely. He repeated the process. For Tara, she was lighter but more unresponsive, her head falling against his shoulder as he guided her down. Once both women were on the ground, Cole assessed them systematically. Breathing weak, frostbite visible around fingers, early signs along the ears and cheeks, core temperature dangerously low. With the storm worsening, the ravine would become deadly within the hour. "We don't have time," he murmured. He pulled out his emergency insulated blankets, wrapping each woman securely. He positioned them side by side on a foldable rescue sled, then strapped them in to prevent rolling. Tara's eyelids fluttered briefly before closing again. Evelyn didn't move at all. Kodiak moved closer, pressing his side against the sled as if offering his warmth. Cole ran a gloved hand down the dog's back. "Good boy. Keep watch." He glanced at the sky. The snowfall had intensified, swirling aggressively. The trek back to his cabin would be long and brutal, especially loaded with weight, but staying here was not an option. Cole leaned forward, gripping the sled harness with both hands. His jaw tightened. "Hold on," he whispered to the two unconscious women, though they likely couldn't hear him. "You're not dying out here." He took the first step. The sled jerked behind him. Snow clawed at his boots. The storm pressed against his body like a weight. Kodiak trotted ahead, guiding the path with sure footing. Behind them, the ravine remained silent, cold, empty, and unforgiving. Cole Maddox pulled harder, fueled by a vow forged in snow and instinct. No one dies tonight. Cole Maddox pulled the rescue sled through the deepening storm with the same quiet determination he had carried through years of difficult missions. The path toward his cabin was steep in areas and constricted by falling branches, and the storm kept shifting direction unpredictably, forcing him to adjust his footing every few steps. The weight of two unconscious women on the sled made each stride feel like he was dragging an anchor through wet concrete. Kodiak led the way ahead, constantly checking back over his shoulder to ensure Cole was still behind him. The dog's tail was low, not fearful but alert, reading the terrain with instinctive precision. The forest around them had changed character since the rescue. The wind pushed harder, bending the tops of the pine trees and shaking loose icy debris that rained down around them. Cole took a moment to assess the clouds, dark, heavy, and fast-moving. The temperature was dropping further, a dangerous sign. If he hadn't reached the women when he did, another hour in that ravine would have sealed their fate. "Almost there," he muttered, though the words were more for himself than the women on the sled. After another 20 minutes of grueling progress, the first shape of Cole's cabin appeared through the storm. It wasn't much to look at, a modest log structure backed against a rocky rise, the wood darkened by years of winter exposure. Smoke rose from the chimney, faint but visible, a small victory. He had left a low fire going earlier, anticipating an early return from training. That fire might now make the difference between life and death. Cole pushed through the last incline, stopping the sled just outside the sheltered porch. Kodiak shook off snow, then stationed himself near the cabin door, like a guard posted at attention. Cole lifted Evelyn first, carrying her inside. She was tall, so he had to angle her body carefully to avoid hitting the door frame. Her head rested lightly against his shoulder, hair still stiff with ice. She weighed far less than she should have, another bad sign. Hypothermia stole strength quickly. Inside, the cabin was dimly lit by the surviving fire in the stone hearth. Cole set Evelyn down on a thick folded blanket near the fire, then went back for Tara, who was lighter but colder. Her breath came in small puffs barely visible in the cold air inside the cabin. He placed her next to Evelyn, spacing them properly to manage their warming process safely. Kodiak remained by the doorway until Cole shut it behind them, then circled once before lying down close enough to watch both women. The dog's eyes remained sharp, reading every movement around him. Cole hung his coat on a hook near the door and knelt beside the women to begin a systematic assessment. His voice came out steady, a professional cadence shaped by years of training. Core warming, gradual, no rapid heat. Avoid frostbite exacerbation. He worked first to remove the stiff, frozen outer layers. From both women, cutting away ice-laden sections of fabric when necessary. Underneath, their clothes were damp and dangerously cold. He unrolled 2 emergency thermal blankets from his kit and wrapped each woman individually. He placed small heat packs near their torsos, careful not to place them directly on extremities. Rapid warming of hands or feet could cause shock or permanent tissue damage. As their bodies began to warm slightly, their breathing patterns shifted, still weak but no longer fading. Cole took a slow breath, feeling some tension leave his shoulders. He moved next to check for injuries unrelated to the cold. Frostbite was evident on both women's fingers and ears, but no immediate signs of fractures or deep lacerations. He noted bruising on Evelyn's wrists from the restraints. Tara had a bruise on her temple, likely from impact or being handled roughly. Cole stepped away and prepared warm electrolyte solution on the small wood-burning stove in the kitchen corner. The cabin was compact, one main room with the fireplace, a kitchenette on the left, a narrow hallway leading to a small bedroom and storage area. It had the essentials, sturdy, reliable, nothing decorative. When he returned with 2 insulated cups, Evelyn stirred slightly. Her eyelids twitched before half opening, revealing dark brown eyes dulled by exhaustion. She tried to move but stopped when pain surfaced across her face. "Easy," Cole said, kneeling beside her. "You're safe. Don't sit up yet." Evelyn blinked slowly, her gaze searching the room until it settled on Cole. Her voice came out scraped and thin. Where are we?" "My cabin, Frostbridge Ridge." He gently lifted the cup. "Small sips if you can." She obeyed, her hand trembling uncontrollably, even with his steadying support. Kodiak moved closer, resting his head near Evelyn's leg. The dog's presence seemed to ground her slightly. A faint expression of relief crossed her face. Cole turned to Tara, whose breathing had quickened slightly. He checked her pulse again, stronger. A few minutes passed before Tara regained consciousness. When her eyes finally opened, they were unfocused and full of confusion. Tara had soft green eyes that contrasted with the deep bruise on her temple. She looked younger than Evelyn, perhaps late 20s, with features that suggested gentleness and a calm disposition under normal circumstances. She tried to speak, but her lips were too dry. Cole offered the other cup and said softly, "You're safe. Drink slowly." Tara managed a few sips before tears welled in her eyes. Not from pain exactly, but from the overwhelming contrast between the storm outside and the unexpected warmth inside. We thought we weren't going to make it," she whispered. Cole didn't answer immediately. He simply nodded once, the kind of nod that acknowledged both the danger and the fact that they had survived it. After both women had stabilized enough to lie comfortably, Cole positioned himself on the opposite side of the fire, where he could see the door, the windows, and the women at the same time. It was habit, a security instinct he'd never lost. Kodiak settled next to him. Evelyn watched him quietly for several seconds before saying, "You knew what you were doing out there." "I've done enough rescues," Cole replied. "Cold like this doesn't forgive mistakes." His tone was even, controlled. Tara shifted slightly, grimacing. "Why were you out there?" "Training with Kodiak," Cole said. "We weren't expecting a storm this strong." Evelyn frowned. "Then how did you find us?" Cole looked toward the dog. "Kodiak did." The women followed his gaze. Kodiak lifted his head, ears perked, then lowered it again, as if acknowledging the credit without caring for recognition. The storm thrashed harder against the cabin walls, reminding all of them how close danger still lingered outside. Cole stood and added more wood to the fire. Sparks shot upward, casting shadows across the ceiling. "Both of you need rest," he said. "We'll talk when you're stronger." He turned toward his storage room to gather more blankets and supplies, but before he reached the doorway, Evelyn's voice stopped him. "Whoever did this to us might still be out there." Cole paused. The idea wasn't new to him. He'd been thinking about it since the ravine, but hearing it spoken aloud anchored it with weight. He looked back at Evelyn and Tara, their faces illuminated by the fire. Fear lived beneath their exhaustion. Not fear of the storm, but of the people who had left them to die in it. Cole answered with the same calm resolve he'd carried the entire night. "You're safe here," he said firmly, "and nobody's getting near this cabin without me knowing." Kodiak lifted his head again, eyes fixed on Cole as if to agree. Outside, the storm pressed against the windows, but inside the cabin, warmth began reclaiming the space. For now, survival was enough. The questions, the explanations, the danger that brought these two women to the edge of death could wait until morning. Cole Maddox stepped outside the cabin just after dawn, though dawn didn't look like much through the heavy gray cloud cover. Snow had piled against the porch rail overnight, softening the outline of the cabin until it resembled a forgotten mound of white pressed into the tree line. The storm had slowed, but not stopped. Light flakes drifted down in lazy spirals, and the woods beyond the clearing were muffled into silence. The cold was still sharp enough to burn exposed skin, but at least the visibility had improved. Kodiak stood beside him, tail low but alert, nose constantly sampling the air. The dog's body was rigid in a way that told Cole the forest hadn't returned to normal yet. Something lingered, something that didn't belong. Cole scanned the perimeter with a slow, practiced sweep of his eyes. He saw it almost immediately, marks in the snow along the edge of the clearing, not from wildlife, not from any search party. Human tracks, deep, deliberate, and leading into the woods, too fresh to have been from the storm. His jaw tightened. Someone had been here after he brought Evelyn and Tara inside last night. Kodiak sniffed the tracks, letting out a quiet rumble. Cole knelt beside the prints and measured the stride with his fingers. Large boot size, wide heel, weight distributed toward the outside of each foot. Someone tall, someone confident on snow, not stumbling or dragging. He followed the line of tracks with his gaze until they disappeared into the tree line. "What were you doing out here?" Cole muttered. Behind him, the cabin door creaked slightly. Evelyn Shore stepped out, leaning against the frame for support. Her skin had regained a bit of warmth overnight, though her face still reflected exhaustion and the ache of half-frozen muscles. She wore a heavy wool blanket around her shoulders and a pair of worn thermal pants and socks Cole had given her. Her height, around 5'8", made her silhouette wiry yet sturdy against the cabin backdrop. "You shouldn't be out in this cold yet," Cole said without looking back. Evelyn took a slow breath. "I heard voices. Thought you were talking to someone. Just Kodiak." Evelyn's gaze shifted toward the tracks, her brows pulled together. "Those weren't there last night." "I know." She stepped down onto the porch carefully, bracing herself on the wooden post. "You think they followed us?" Cole didn't answer. He studied the direction the tracks pointed, trying to read terrain and intent. The tracks didn't approach the door, nor circle the cabin. They stayed at the clearing's edge as if observing, watching, assessing. "They got close enough," he finally said, standing up. "Closer than I like." Kodiak's tail stiffened. Then he lifted his head and stared into the woods as if expecting something, or someone, to reappear. Cole put a hand on the dog's collar and guided him back. "Not yet." Evelyn exhaled sharply, the sound half frustration, half fear. "I should have known they wouldn't just leave us for dead." Cole studied her as she wrapped the blanket tighter around her arms. Even weakened, she gave off an impression of someone used to fighting, not physically, but intellectually, the kind of person who dug into problems until she found the core, no matter how ugly it was. "Tara awake?" Cole asked. "She's drinking water. Looks better than last night." Evelyn paused. "Better than I feel." You'll both need a few days to fully stabilize. We don't have a few days. Her tone made him look back at her fully for the first time that morning. Her eyes were steady, determined, not panicked. You know who did this, Cole said. I know who they work for, Evelyn corrected, her voice tightening. But I don't know how long they've been watching us, or why they escalated this fast. Cole motioned for her to go inside. We'll talk where it's warm. Inside the cabin, Tara Quinn sat near the fire, wrapped in a thick blanket, legs folded underneath her. Her short auburn hair had finally thawed, curling slightly at the ends. Though she still looked pale and exhausted, her eyes were more focused than the night before. She was the kind of person who wore gentleness openly, but right now tension sat on her shoulders like a weight she couldn't shrug. Morning, Tara said softly, voice scratchy from cold damage. Did something happen? Cole knelt near the table and grabbed a thermos of warm broth. Drink this first. She obeyed, taking slow sips before asking again. What's wrong? Cole didn't sugarcoat it. Someone was at the clearing last night, tracks in the snow. Tara froze mid-sip, fingers tightening around the cup. They came back? They didn't approach the cabin, Cole said, but they were watching. Evelyn paced near the fireplace, the blanket over her shoulders moving with each determined step. They're not amateurs. They've been tracking children through a fake safety app. I thought we were close to exposing the operation, but apparently they were closer to us. Tara nodded. They knew everything, Cole. Our schedules, our routines at the youth center, the names of the kids we were trying to protect. Her voice trembled before she forced it steady again. We reported suspicious behavior. Next thing we knew, we were abducted. Cole sat back on his heels. They tied you up in a ravine in the middle of a storm. They intended you to die, because killing us indoors would leave evidence, Evelyn said. A storm erases everything. Cole didn't like how logical that sounded. Kodiak walked over and nudged Tara's leg gently. She gave him a weak smile and stroked the top of his head. At least someone's on our side. Evelyn stopped pacing. Cole, we need to reach the sheriff or someone from federal law enforcement. These people won't stop, and if they know we're alive, they'll try again. Cole rubbed at the bridge of his nose. Cell tower got knocked out by the storm. Radios don't work this far up the ridge. Closest reliable communication is the ranger station, 5 miles west. And we can't get there, Tara said, stating the obvious. Not in this condition. Cole looked at them carefully. I'll go. Evelyn shook her head. You shouldn't go alone. Better me than either of you in this weather, and Kodiak will be with me. As if on cue, the dog let out a soft bark, tail thumping once against the wooden floor. Tara swallowed hard. What if they're still out there? Then I'll handle it, Cole said, calmly enough that both women looked at him again. Evelyn stepped closer. Before you go, there's something you should know. She pulled a small object from the pocket of the clothing Cole had given her. A device no larger than a wristwatch battery, smooth and dark, with a faint red mark on one side. Cole took it. What is this? A tracker, Evelyn said. It was sewn into the lining of my coat. Tara had one too. She nodded toward the small pile of frozen clothing Cole had cut off them last night. They weren't just dumping us, they were monitoring us. Cole's expression hardened. Meaning someone could have followed your trail directly to this cabin. Exactly. His mind began to work, not with panic, but with the calculating clarity he used during missions. If the trackers were still active, someone knew the moment the clothing moved. Someone had watched the rescue, tracked the direction, and reached the clearing after dark. Cole picked up the tracker and crushed it in his palm until the casing cracked. Then he tossed the pieces into the fire. It's disabled now, he said, but we don't know how much they learned before this. Evelyn nodded grimly. Then whatever we do it fast. Cole grabbed his jacket from the hook. I'll leave in 10 minutes. Kodiak and I will follow the ridge west. Ranger Station should be reachable in about 2 hours if the snow stays moderate. Once I get through, I'll call for help. Tara's voice lowered. And if someone finds us before then? Cole met her eyes, steady and unshaken. Barricade the door, keep the fire going, and trust that Kodiak and I will get back before that happens. He didn't wait for argument. He prepared supplies, checked his emergency gear, loaded his flare gun, and tested his headlamp. Kodiak followed every movement, tail swaying slowly, waiting for the signal. Before Cole stepped outside, Evelyn stopped him with a hand on his arm. Whatever happens, she said quietly, thank you, You didn't have to save us. You didn't have to stay. Cole held her gaze for a moment, then answered simply, I'm not losing anyone else in a storm. Kodiak barked once, decisively. Cole opened the cabin door. Cold air swept in, carrying with it the faint sound of shifting branches. Snow drifted across the threshold. The tracks in the clearing had already begun to fill, but their direction remained clear. Stay inside, Cole said. Then he stepped out into the cold with Kodiak at his heel. The door shut behind them, leaving Evelyn and Tara alone with the fire and the echoes of the storm outside. For now, the cabin remained safe, but only for now. Cole Maddox moved steadily through the forest, following the faint outline of the ridge path. The storm had weakened, but the cold still pressed against his face like a sheet of glass. Kodiak stayed close beside him, ears upright, pausing occasionally to reassess the wind. The snow under their boots and paws compressed with a crisp, deadened crunch that echoed just enough to remind Cole that the woods were not entirely silent. The ridge curved ahead, leading toward the ranger station, a weather-beaten outpost built decades earlier, meant for fire watch teams and seasonal patrols. It was usually empty in winter except for an assigned ranger rotating through every 2 weeks. Cole hoped the rotation hadn't changed. Communication failures during storms weren't unusual around Frostbridge. Storms knocked out power lines or took down repeater towers. Rangers were often the only link to the outside world. He glanced down at Kodiak. 2 more miles, he said. Kodiak pushed forward, tail swinging slightly as if urging him to keep pace. Cole's breath fogged in the air, the cloud dispersing quickly into the open cold. The forest felt different that morning, not threatening, but watchful. The way the wind shifted between branches, the way certain sounds seemed delayed, as if echoing from a distance they shouldn't reach. His instincts sharpened the longer he walked. He couldn't shake the thought that whoever left the footprints near his cabin might still be somewhere nearby. The ridge narrowed at one point, forcing Cole to step over a fallen pine. Beyond it, the slope smoothed out and offered a clearer path. He checked his pace, letting himself settle back into a controlled rhythm that kept him warm without exhausting him. He scanned the snow again. Kodiak stopped. The dog lowered his nose toward a patch of snow that had been disturbed, not by boots, something smaller, oval-shaped, shallow impressions moving in a staggered pattern. Cole crouched. Snowshoe hares? He asked to himself. But no, these prints were too large and too widely spaced. He watched Kodiak while the dog analyzed the scent trail. Then Cole noticed it, the wide imprint of a knee and the faint depression of a glove. Someone had knelt there, scanning the ridge. Someone had been tracking, probably him. Cole exhaled slowly through his nose. Let's keep moving. They pushed forward, though Cole's alertness doubled. The path bent between 2 boulders before opening to a flatter expanse of pines. The ranger station sat at the far end, an old wooden structure elevated slightly on cement blocks, its low roof angled to withstand heavy snow. 2 radio antennas, coated in frost, leaned against the sky. Smoke curled from the chimney. Someone was there. Cole slowed. Kodiak mirrored him. Tail stiff now, head lowered, ears angled forward in focused attention. Cole approached the station with practiced caution. Easy, he said quietly. He scanned the clearing. No unusual footprints, no vehicle tracks. The front steps were partially covered in snow, except for the top 2, where someone had recently walked. The doorknob was clean of frost. Someone had entered not long ago. Cole reached the porch, lifted a fist, and knocked firmly. Ranger service, he called out. Cole Maddox, coming in? A few seconds passed. Then he heard movement inside, slow and cautious, followed by the scrape of a chair leg across the wooden floor. The door opened halfway, revealing a man in his early 50s. He was tall, at least 6'2", with a lean but sturdy build, the kind that came from years of outdoor work. His hair was a faded blonde streaked with gray, cut short. A well-groomed but full beard framed his square jaw. His eyes, a pale blue, were sharp and direct, with the wary look of someone who spent most of his time alone in unpredictable conditions. He wore the standard winter ranger uniform, insulated jacket in dark forest green, thick thermal pants, and heavy boots coated in snowmelt near the edges. Cole Maddox, the man said, his voice gravelly but not unfriendly. It's been a while. Cole nodded. Nathaniel Nate Harker, the winter-assigned ranger, was known for being capable, level-headed, and resistant to panic. He'd served 8 years in the Marine Corps before turning to wilderness work. He had a reputation for being calm during crises and unbothered by isolation, traits that made him perfect for Frostbridge winters. "What brings you up the ridge?" Nate asked. Then his gaze shifted to Kodiak. "Dog looks serious." "He has reason to be," Cole said. Nate stepped aside, opening the door fully. "Come in before you freeze." Inside, the station was warmer than expected. A metal stove near the wall radiated steady heat. Maps covered one side of the interior wall, and a desk cluttered with radio equipment took up the opposite side. The station smelled faintly of pine sap and old coffee. Cole stepped in, Kodiak following. Nate closed the door. "Storm knocked out the main tower," he said, returning to the stove. "Radio's barely functioning. I've been trying all morning." Cole took off his gloves. "I found 2 women in a ravine last night." Nate turned sharply. "Alive?" "Barely. They're at my cabin now, recovering." Nate grabbed a thermos from the counter and poured steaming coffee into 2 metal cups. "Who were they?" "Evelyn Shore and Tara Quinn," Cole said. "Abducted, left to die." Nate's expression hardened. "By who?" "That's what I need to report." Cole took a sip of the coffee, warming his throat. "They were being tracked. Someone came near my cabin overnight." Nate rubbed a hand over his beard. "You sure?" "Boot prints. And they stayed outside the clearing like they were studying the cabin." The ranger paced slowly, thinking. "Mountain terrain makes ambush easy. If someone's hunting you, they'll use the trees as cover." Kodiak growled softly at the door, though nothing moved outside. Nate watched the dog. "He's spooked?" "Focused," Cole corrected. Nate nodded, then gestured toward the radio. "I've got one channel that sometimes gets through. If we're lucky, we can send a distress code to the county office." Cole approached the radio with him. The equipment was old, sturdy but outdated, its dials worn from years of use. Nate flicked one switch, waited for the static to settle, then adjusted the frequency. The radio crackled, hissing like a distant fire. "Come on," Nate muttered, leaning closer. "Give me something." A faint echo emerged, broken and irregular. Cole leaned forward. "Try boosting power." "Already maxed." Nate tried 2 more frequencies. Still nothing clear. Then a stronger pulse of static came through, followed by a clipped, garbled voice. Nate banged the side of the console gently. "That's County Dispatch trying to respond," he said. "We might get through if the interference eases." Cole didn't like the word might. "We need to warn them. Whoever did this will come back." Nate studied him. "You think they'll hit your cabin?" "They already came close." Nate didn't hesitate. "Then we don't wait on this radio." He walked to a metal locker near the wall. Inside were emergency supplies, flares, rope coils, medical kits, and a single bolt-action rifle. At the bottom, Nate lifted out a long black case and opened it. Inside lay a satellite communicator. Compact, rectangular, rugged. Cole raised an eyebrow. "You weren't supposed to keep one of these after decommission." Nate shrugged. "Bureaucracy moves slow. Survival doesn't." He handed it over. "Hope the battery didn't die." Cole pressed the power button. The screen flickered, then stabilized. "It works." "Good." Nate crossed his arms. "Send your message." Cole typed a brief summary. "Disabled trackers on 2 abducted survivors. Suspect pursuit active. Request immediate support. Frostbridge, North Ridge." The signal bar flickered but held as he hit transmit. After a moment, the device confirmed. Message sent. Cole breathed out slowly. One step forward, he gave the communicator back. "Thanks." Nate nodded. "We're not out of this. If someone's in these woods, they'll notice your absence from the cabin. That's why I need to get back fast." Nate moved to the window, peering out toward the trees. "We'll go together." Cole shook his head. "You're the only ranger posted. If something happens here, we lose communication entirely." Nate considered it, jaw tightening. "Then take this." He reached into the locker again and handed Cole a flare pistol. Heavy, metal, scratched from years of use. "If you run into trouble, put it straight into the sky. I'll see it." Cole took the weapon. "Appreciate it." He slipped on his gloves, tightened his pack, and signaled Kodiak. The dog immediately stood and waited at the door. Nate opened it for them. The wind had calmed, but the sky still hung low. Snow drifted in soft waves across the clearing. "Be fast," Nate said. "I plan to." Cole stepped out with Kodiak, heading back into the trees toward his cabin, toward Evelyn, Tara, and the danger waiting for them all. Behind him, Nate locked the door, eyes shifting to the radio as if willing it to stay alive. The forest swallowed Cole and Kodiak within minutes. leaving only the muted echo of their footsteps in the snow. The ridge felt colder on the way back. Cole Maddox moved quickly along the ridge, retracing the path he had carved into the snow earlier that morning. The air shifted since he'd left the ranger station. Colder, heavier, the kind that hinted at another front pushing in from the north. He didn't like it. Weather in the mountains turned unpredictable fast, and unpredictable weather paired with human threats made for a dangerous combination. Kodiak trotted ahead of him, nose low, tail straight, paws sinking into the crusted layer of snow. Every few minutes the dog stopped and looked back at Cole as if gauging whether to accelerate or keep their pace steady. Cole appreciated it. Even in silence, Kodiak communicated more than most people. The forest seemed different now that Cole knew someone had been near his cabin the night before. He noticed more details: broken twigs at unnatural angles, indentations where something heavy had been dragged, subtle shifts in the snow's surface that suggested someone had crouched behind stumps or boulders. None of it confirmed a single pursuer, but taken together, the signs formed a pattern. Someone had moved through this forest with intent, not wandering, not lost. Cole glanced up at the canopy. The sun was still hidden behind a layer of uniform gray, flattening the light and giving every shadow the same washed-out tone. "Let's hope we get back before dark," he said quietly. Kodiak didn't respond, but his ears rotated, picking up something faint. He let out a short, contained woof. Cole stopped. "What do you hear?" he whispered. Kodiak moved ahead a few steps, nose working fast. Then he veered left off the main path. Cole followed him between tightly spaced pines until they reached a depression in the snow near a fallen log. Kodiak sniffed the spot and gave a low growl. Not aggressive, but alert. Cole examined the area. Boot prints, wide tread, heavy weight distributed evenly, but these were different from the prints near the cabin. These were fresher, within an hour at most. "Someone's close," he murmured. He scanned the tree line carefully, hand hovering near the flare pistol Nate had given him. The forest remained still, no movement, no sound except the faint pressure of wind through branches. Kodiak sniffed again, then pulled his head away abruptly, clearly unsettled. Cole straightened. "We keep moving." They continued down the ridge. As they approached a bend, Kodiak slowed again, not out of caution, but because a distant sound reached both of them. An echo, muffled but unmistakable, metal hitting metal, once, then again. Cole's pulse tightened. That sound came from the direction of his cabin. He forced himself not to sprint yet. Charging in without information was a good way to get killed or get someone else hurt. Instead, he crouched low, motioned to Kodiak, and approached the bend quietly. The descent beyond the ridge led to a lower plateau where the cabin sat. As he got closer, he scanned for smoke. He saw it, thin but rising in a steady line. The fire was still going. At least Evelyn and Tara were keeping warm. But then he saw something else. Tracks. Several lines of them, coming from the east side of the forest and converging toward the cabin clearing. These weren't the lone watcher's tracks from the previous night. These were multiple, 3, maybe 4 individuals, moving in formation. Cole pulled in a slow, tense breath. They came back. Kodiak's body stiffened, tail almost straight as a rod. Cole studied the spacing. "They're armed," he concluded, "and moving deliberately." He checked the angle of approach. Whoever they were, they had avoided leaving prints across open terrain and stayed within the trees as long as possible before cutting into the clearing. Smart, experienced, professionals. Cole kept low and moved forward until the cabin came into partial view through the branches. It sat quietly, obscured behind a cluster of spruces. No broken windows, no open door, no visible signs of a struggle. But the tracks around the perimeter were enough to confirm the threat. Kodiak gave him a look that translated clearly, "We're not alone." Cole pulled back behind the trees and examined the patterns. The assailants had circled the cabin at least twice. The tracks indicated they had stood in several positions, near the back wall, near the southwest corner, and near the woodpile, observing, studying, maybe waiting, but something was missing. "If they went this close," Cole whispered, "why didn't they break in?" Kodiak huffed once, as if agreeing with the question. Cole replayed the timeline. He had left the cabin before sunrise. That gap could have given the attackers an opening, but perhaps they didn't realize he'd left. Or perhaps they weren't ready to initiate. Or Cole's stomach tightened. Perhaps they were planning to return with more people. He scanned for any identifiers left behind. shell casings, dropped equipment, chemical scents, but found nothing except a set of partial impressions near the west corner. He knelt beside them. They weren't boot prints, they weren't animal tracks, they were the imprint of a knee and the heel of a hand. Someone had knelt there for a long time, watching the window. Cole's jaw clenched. He couldn't waste time. He stepped out from cover, approaching the cabin door directly with Kodiak at his heel. He knocked twice in a firm pattern. "It's Cole! Open up!" A moment passed. Evelyn's voice came through, strained but controlled. "Say something Kodiak would react to." Cole smiled faintly. "Smart." "Kodiak, heel." The dog obeyed instantly, sitting against Cole's leg. The door unlocked. Evelyn opened it only wide enough to see him clearly. Her dark hair was tied back now, face flushed from being near the fire but still marked with fatigue. Her eyes flicked behind him to check for threats. She widened the door. "Get inside." Cole stepped in. Quickly. Tara was sitting near the fire again, wrapped in a thicker blanket this time. Her eyes shifted anxiously between Cole and Kodiak. "You're back sooner than we expected," she said. "Good thing I am," Cole replied, shutting the door. "We're out of time." Evelyn stiffened. "They were here again, weren't they?" "Yes. At least 3 men, maybe more." Tara swallowed. "Did they see you?" "No, but they evaluated the cabin. They didn't try to break in. That means they're planning something coordinated." Evelyn stepped closer. "Did you reach anyone? Nate helped me send a satellite message. If the signal held, someone should be mobilizing. But response time in this kind of terrain won't be immediate. So we're on our own until then," Evelyn said. "Not entirely," Cole answered. He pulled off his gloves and moved to the table where his maps were stored. He spread one open, an old topographic layout of Frostbridge Ridge. Kodiak lay beside them, eyes half open but alert. Cole pointed to the ridgeline. "Their approach came from here. That means they're using the old logging road as cover." Tara hugged her blanket tighter. "Is that close?" "Too close." Evelyn crossed her arms. "Do we stay here?" "For now," Cole said, "but we prepare. If they come back tonight, we need to be ready." Tara looked at him with worry. "What do we do?" Cole met both their eyes. "We make sure whoever comes for you next doesn't make it through the door." Kodiak let out a low, deliberate growl, as if confirming the plan. The cabin felt smaller than before, but not because of fear. Because the threat outside pressed against its walls like a gathering storm. For now, this was their ground, and they would hold it. Cole Maddox spent the next hour reinforcing the cabin while the daylight thinned behind thick layers of gray. The clouds sagged low again, threatening another storm. He moved efficiently through the small space, checking windows, testing the hinges on the front and back doors, repositioning furniture to create improvised cover. His movements carried a quiet intensity, not rushed, but purposeful, the way he had worked during high-risk extractions years ago. Kodiak shadowed him closely, trotting from room to room, stopping only to sniff along the floorboards and door cracks. The dog's posture remained tight, the way it only became when danger hovered close but still unseen. Evelyn watched Cole from near the kitchen counter, arms folded against her ribs. Her dark hair had been tied into a loose knot, strands falling along her cheeks. She wore a thicker flannel shirt Cole had found in a storage trunk, sleeves rolled slightly. Her posture was stable, but tension lived beneath her calm exterior. Tara sat near the fire on a low stool, still wrapped in a blanket but able to sit straighter now. Her auburn hair was dry, curling in soft waves around her face. The bruise on her temple had darkened, but her eyes were brighter than before, focused, alert. Neither woman spoke while Cole worked, not wanting to interrupt the rhythm he seemed locked into. Finally, he paused, adjusting the placement of a heavy dresser he'd moved to cover the weak point near the back window. "That should hold long enough," Cole said. Evelyn stepped forward. "Long enough for what?" "For us to react before they get inside." "You think they'll come tonight?" Tara asked quietly. Cole didn't sugarcoat it. "People who study a cabin that long don't wait days. They come when they believe they have the advantage. That's after dark." Evelyn paced toward the window, pressing 2 fingers lightly against the cold glass. "Then we need eyes outside," she said. "We need to know when they're closing in." Cole nodded. "That's what Kodiak is for. But we also need a fallback if they cut off our exits." Tara's brows pinched together. "Do we have one?" "The crawl space under the cabin," Cole said. "It's not big, small opening behind the stove, but it's reinforced and stocked with emergency supplies. Not comfortable, but safe enough to hide temporarily. And you? Evelyn asked. Cole didn't answer immediately. I'm not hiding. Kodiak nudged his leg, as if confirming the point. As Cole returned to the table to unfold his map again, a faint beeping sound echoed from his jacket pocket. He reached in and pulled out the flare pistol Nate had lent him. The sound wasn't coming from the pistol, but from a small black box clipped to the bottom of the holster. Cole frowned, recognizing it belatedly. An old, compact sensor Nate sometimes kept attached to gear. A motion response proximity alert. If motion in the environment spiked, suddenly it sent a short-range beep signal. What is that? Evelyn asked. Movement, Cole said. Something triggered the sensor. Tara swallowed. Outside? Yes. Cole moved to the nearest window, staying low. Kodiak rushed ahead, climbing onto the wood storage bench beneath the window to get a better angle. Cole peered through the narrow slit between wooden planks. The forest was a muted wall of snow and pine, but something felt wrong. The silence was heavier than it should have been. Even the wind seemed to hesitate. Evelyn stepped beside him, keeping her face at an angle to minimize silhouette exposure. Do you see anything? No, but they're out there. Either animals or... He stopped. The proximity sensor beeped again, 2 short bursts. Kodiak growled low. This was no animal. Cole motioned them back with a firm gesture. Keep away from windows. Evelyn and Tara stepped back, tense but holding their composure. How many do you think? Evelyn asked. 3 earlier, Cole said, but seeing the patterns outside, I'd assume 4 or more. They'll spread out. Tara rubbed her hands together nervously. Why would they wait all day just to come back at night? Why not attack when they saw you leave? Evelyn's gaze sharpened. Because they didn't know where Cole was going. They don't know what he knows now. She looked at Cole. They're choosing a time when we're at the disadvantage. Cole nodded. And they want to avoid gunfire in daylight. It's easier to approach under darkness with the trees for cover. So, they're trained, Evelyn said, and patient. Which makes them more dangerous, Cole added. Suddenly, Kodiak's ears perked toward the northwest corner of the cabin. His pupils widened. A soft rumble vibrated from his chest. Cole reacted instantly, moving toward the corner window, but when he tried to look outside again, he noticed something unusual on the glass, a thin pattern of condensation at the edges. Someone was close enough to breathe near the wall. He mouthed silently, "They're right outside." Evelyn stiffened, but remained quiet. Tara covered her mouth, forcing herself not to gasp. For several seconds, no one spoke or moved. Kodiak's growl deepened. Then, abruptly, a heavy crunch sounded outside, the unmistakable sound of something, or someone, stepping onto packed snow. Cole backed away from the window. They're scouting the perimeter, testing structural points. Evelyn's voice was barely audible. How do you know? Because that's what I do. Can they break the door? Tara whispered. Not easily. I reinforced it, but they could force us out by creating a breach somewhere else. The proximity sensor beeped again. 3 rapid signals this time. Kodiak spun toward the back of the cabin, shoulders rigid, tail raised. Cole moved to the back hallway. Before he reached the window, he stopped and inhaled, sharply. Smoke, very faint, not from their fireplace. They're burning something, Cole muttered. Evelyn's eyes widened. Are they trying to flush us out? Not yet, Cole said, but they might be heating metal tools to weaken the frame. Tara's voice shook. Is that even possible in this cold? With enough fuel, yes. Another noise broke the tense stillness, an unexpected rhythmic clinking coming from the left side of the cabin. Cole recognized it instantly. They're testing the propane tank. Evelyn's face tightened. Can it explode? If they damage the valve and ignite it, yes. Tara stood up abruptly. We need a plan B. No, Cole said firmly. We stay inside unless they force us out. We don't run into open snow blind. He moved toward the front of the cabin again, analyzing every angle of potential breach. Then he saw a shadow move between 2 pines, silent, tall, controlled in posture, not rushing, not panicking, a professional approach. The man stepped into sight briefly. He wore a white-gray winter shell jacket suited for blending into snow, insulated tactical pants, and snow-patterned boots. His face was partially obscured by a winter mask, but his posture told Cole enough, calm, patient, experienced. A rifle hung across his chest, not raised yet, waiting, observing. "We have a visual," Cole said softly. Evelyn and Tara didn't come close, but they stood where they could hear. Cole watched the figure disappear behind a tree. A second shape appeared farther back. This one was shorter, broader in the shoulders, moving slower, suggesting more weight or possibly carrying equipment. Cole's brain cataloged details. 2 visible, likely 2 more unseen. They were closing in systematically from multiple angles. He stepped back from the window. "It starts tonight." Tara's breath hitched. Evelyn steadied herself. "Then what now?" Cole checked his watch. Nate should have eyes on the ridge, but even if he saw anything, backup is hours out. He looked at both women. "For now, we prepare. When they move, we respond. We don't panic. We don't make noise. We don't expose ourselves." He turned to Kodiak. "Stay sharp." Kodiak stood at attention. Cole extinguished the lantern to reduce visibility inside. The fire dimmed behind the metal grate. Darkness settled around them like a second layer of protection. Outside, snow continued to fall quietly. Inside, 3 people and 1 dog waited, listening to the forest shift with dangerous intent. The attack hadn't begun, but every instinct in Cole's body told him it was close. Very close. The cabin walls seemed to hold their breath as the last traces of daylight dissolved into a cold, heavy night. Wind brushed lightly against the logs, but it wasn't the wind Cole listened for. He stood near the front window, body angled to the side to avoid creating a silhouette. Kodiak remained beside him, muscles tensed, head low, gaze fixed on the door. Evelyn and Tara stayed farther back near the kitchen counter, where the extinguished lantern and a few supplies had been laid out. The fire burned low in the grate behind a metal screen, providing warmth but only a faint glow, just enough to keep frost from creeping up the walls. Cole looked at the map spread across the table. They had only one point of retreat besides the crawl space, a narrow back path that snaked behind the cabin toward a rock formation. But that path became nearly invisible at night, and if the attackers blocked it, there would be no exit. Before he could speak, Kodiak's ears shot upward. The dog's pupils widened, catching light from the fire. A single deep growl vibrated through his chest. Cole stiffened. "They're moving." Evelyn took a step forward. How close? Close enough that Kodiak hears the footwork. Tara swallowed hard, gripping the blanket around her shoulders. "How can you tell?" "Animals sense rhythm," Cole said. "Humans have a different cadence. He knows the difference." The proximity sensor chirped once, then again, then a quick double tone. Kodiak responded, pivoting toward the back corner of the cabin. Cole darted across the room and pressed his back against the wall, beside the window there. He lifted a finger for silence. Outside, faint as breath, came the sound of snow crunching under a slow, deliberate step. A second step, a pause, then the scrape of something metallic brushing against bark. Evelyn whispered from across the room, "They're testing angles again." "No," Cole murmured. "They're positioning." He waited, counting the seconds, letting the sounds tell him more than his eyes could. The crunching of snow came again, this time heavier, faster, indicating weight was shifting. A different noise followed from the opposite side of the cabin. 2 fronts. Cole's instincts sharpened. "They're preparing a breach." Tara pressed her hands over her mouth as Kodiak's growl deepened. Louder than before, but still controlled. Cole crouched beside him, one hand on the dog's collar. "We don't move until they force our hand," Cole whispered. "Let them make the first noise." A sudden thud hit the side of the cabin. Not hard enough to break wood, but hard enough to test it. Evelyn flinched. "What was that?" "They're checking structure again," Cole said. "They'll hit harder next time." A second thud followed on the other side of the cabin, then a third near the back wall. Coordination. Cole sank lower, shoulders coiling with tension. He scanned the windows, ready to move as soon as the breach point revealed itself. Then, unexpectedly, a new sound cut through the night. The low hum of an engine, not a vehicle approaching, a vehicle idling. Cole frowned. He moved along the wall until he reached the front window and raised himself slightly to peek through the narrow slit. What he saw made his stomach clench. A snow vehicle, an industrial-grade snow bike with twin treads, sat just beyond the tree line. On it stood a man holding a communication device. The man wasn't wearing tactical camouflage like the earlier attacker. He wore a heavy winter parka interrupted by reflective striping, the kind used by utility workers. But Cole wasn't fooled. The man was clearly not there to fix power lines. He was tall and built sturdily, likely early 40s. His beard was thick and black, streaked with gray, closely trimmed but rough in texture. His eyebrows were dense, giving his deep-set eyes a stern, almost intimidating presence. The lower half of his face was hidden behind a fleece mask, but the upper half told enough: confidence, precision, cold calculation. The way he held the communication device suggested leadership, a new player, and likely the one coordinating the perimeter assault. The man turned his head, scanning the cabin with a measured, professional eye. Cole could see the glint of a tactical earpiece beneath the parka's hood. Evelyn joined Cole quietly, staying below the windowsill. "Who is that?" "Someone who knows this terrain," Cole whispered, "and knows how to run an operation." Tara moved closer. "He looks like he's leading them." "He is," Cole said, "and he's not hiding his presence because he thinks we're already contained." The man on the snowbike appeared disciplined. His posture was rigid, shoulders squared. He rested his free hand near his coat pocket, fingers tapping slowly, perhaps out of habit, perhaps signaling. Cole's mind went into tactical analysis. Men who tapped fingers tended to be methodical thinkers, often strategists in field operations. The man's shoulders were too relaxed for someone expecting resistance. That suggested overconfidence. Kodiak's low growl rumbled again. At that moment, the man's gaze lifted, directly toward the cabin. Cole ducked instinctively. Had he been seen? Maybe, maybe not. But the attacker raised his communication device to his mouth and spoke into it. Cole couldn't hear the words, but the effect came quickly. Something slammed into the back wall, a heavy force, strong enough that the wooden logs shuddered and a dusting of snow fell from the rafters. Tara gasped. Evelyn steadied her. Another slam, loud enough to echo. "They're using a battering tool," Cole said. "Testing weak spots." Evelyn's voice sharpened. "Which spot?" "Back corner. They think it'll give first." Tara clenched the blanket. "Will it?" "Not on the first few hits," Cole said, "but we can't let them get to 10. A new sound came then, footsteps running along the side of the cabin. Fast, controlled, boots striking snow with purpose. Cole moved to intercept the sound path. Kodiak followed. Then came a sharp crack, like metal hitting the corner seam of the cabin. Someone was applying leverage. Cole felt the vibration through the wall. Evelyn whispered, "What do we do if they break through?" "We make them regret trying," Cole answered. He reached beneath the table and pulled out a metal rod he kept there for prying frozen wood. Kodiak stayed beside him, hackles raised. Another strike hit, closer to the window this time. This attack was escalating faster than Cole hoped. He thought they would start with a probing assault, but this was becoming aggressive. A coordinated wedge attempt. A sudden shift of movement outside revealed the silhouette of a man near the back corner. Not the leader from the snowbike, but one of the earlier attackers. This one was shorter, stockier. He moved with the stiffness of someone used to wearing armor. Through the narrow slit between logs, Cole could see part of his face when he turned. A man in his mid-30s, with light brown hair tucked beneath a winter beanie, cheeks reddened by cold, jaw clean-shaven but squared. His eyes were small but sharp. Someone who took orders quickly and followed them without hesitation. He wore a compact headset and carried a pry bar, which he wedged into the seam to test the structure. Cole recognized that kind of man. Loyal, efficient, dangerous. As the man wedged the tool deeper, the cabinwood groaned. Evelyn tensed. "Can he break through?" Cole shook his head. Not yet, but the worry in his eyes confirmed he wouldn't be stopped for long. A sudden crunch came from the front porch. Cole froze. Someone was right outside the front door. Kodiak bristled, positioning himself between the door and the women. Cole moved to the door, silent, pressing his ear against the wood. Breathing, calm, slow, a presence just inches away. Someone was listening on the other side. Cole signaled Evelyn and Tara to stay absolutely still. After several seconds, the presence shifted away, footsteps crunching lightly as the figure walked toward the side of the cabin to regroup. Cole released the breath he'd been holding. "They're surrounding us," he said quietly, waiting for the moment to strike. Evelyn steadied herself. "How long until backup arrives?" "Hours," Cole said, "if they don't block the approach." Tara whispered, "Then what now?" Cole looked to Kodiak, then back to both women. "We hold this ground," Cole said, "and we wait. They'll make their move soon. When they do, we respond with everything we have." Kodiak gave a short, decisive bark. Outside, snow fell in slow, steady sheets. Inside, the tension tightened until the air felt thick. The attack hadn't begun, but the cabin was surrounded, the pressure closing like a tightening noose, and night was just beginning. The night tightened around the cabin like a closing grip. Snow drifted steadily from the sky, layering silently atop the roof, softening the world outside, yet the tension inside felt anything but soft. Cole Maddox stood in the center of the room, scanning each window, calculating every angle of approach. The low fire behind the grate cast shifting shadows along the walls, but he kept it subdued, unwilling to offer attackers a clear silhouette. Kodiak stood to his right, perfectly still, ears pointed like sharpened arrows. Evelyn hovered near the table, clutching the edge as she stared at the windows, trying not to imagine how many figures lurked beyond them. Tara stayed closer to the fireplace, hands gripping the blanket so tightly her knuckles turned pale. Neither woman spoke. They watched Cole the way passengers watched a pilot during a sudden drop in turbulence, hoping his calm meant they still had a chance. The proximity sensor chirped again, this time in a long, sustained tone. Cole turned sharply. They're closing in. Almost instantly, Kodiak moved toward the back wall, hackles raised. The dog's low growl rolled through the cabin like a warning tremor before a quake. From outside came a muffled voice, deep, authoritative, distorted by a mask. "Move the brace again." Metal scraped against wood. Then a hard crack sounded as a tool struck the back corner of the cabin. The log frame vibrated. Dust fell from the beams above. Evelyn stiffened. That sounded stronger than before. "They're escalating," Cole said. "They know the frame is old." He moved to the back hallway and pressed his shoulder against the wall, near the weak corner, listening. 2 sets of footsteps approached, a heavier one and a lighter, quicker pattern that suggested agility. Then a new voice joined the first, lower, rougher, carrying an irritated edge. "I told you the anchor point's deeper. Hit it higher." Cole recognized authority in the tone. This wasn't another foot soldier. This was someone with decision-making power, someone used to being obeyed. The next strike landed, harder, closer to the window frame. The wood groaned under the pressure. Tara flinched visibly, pulling the blanket up to her chin. Evelyn whispered, "They're going to break through, aren't they?" "Not if we slow them down," Cole said. He grabbed a heavy steel pry bar from beside the stove. Before he could move, Kodiak trotted forward, positioning himself between Cole and the rear wall. The dog's tail was rigid, head lowered, every muscle primed. Cole knelt and stroked his fur once. "We'll handle it together," Cole said. A loud snap split the air. The attackers had gained several inches into the seam between 2 logs. Before Cole moved, a second abrupt sound came from the front porch, footsteps climbing the stairs. Slow, heavy, unmistakable. Cole motioned for Evelyn and Tara to get behind the table. "Someone's at the door," Tara whispered. No one needed confirmation. Kodiak turned toward the front of the cabin, growl deepening. Cole crouched beside the door, keeping his body low. The breathing behind the door was unmistakable now. Steady, slow, almost bored. Whoever stood there didn't fear retaliation. Through the thick wood, a voice spoke, calm, deep, and unhurried. "Cole Maddox." Evelyn's breath caught. Tara's eyes widened. Cole remained silent. Another slow exhale came from outside. "I know you're in there, and I know you found the women." Cole's grip tightened around the pry bar. The man outside continued, "You made this more complicated than it needed to be." Cole didn't move, didn't respond. Then the man said something that made Tara's hand fly to her mouth. "You should have stayed out of it." Evelyn looked at Cole, fear mixing with anger. "He knows your name." Cole steadied himself. "They have been observing longer than we thought." Outside, the man shifted his weight, and Cole seized the moment to check the window again without standing fully. A silhouette stood directly in front of the door, a tall man with squared shoulders, wearing a thick tactical parka and winter mask. This wasn't the bearded leader on the snow bike. This one was different. His build was leaner but wiry, the kind of strength honed through endurance, not bulk. His eyes, visible through the balaclava slit, were pale green and unsettlingly calm, almost clinical. He wore a patch on his left sleeve, partially covered by ice, depicting a sort of stylized wolf emblem. New, significant. Cole filed every detail away silently. The man spoke again. "We don't need to kill you, but we do need the women." Tara whispered sharply, "Over my dead body." The man seemed to hear her muffled voice and chuckled, a soft, careless sound that raised the hair on the back of Evelyn's neck. From the back of the cabin, another heavy blow shook the logs. The cabin creaked dangerously. Cole assessed their situation, 2 fronts pressing simultaneously. Unknown numbers outside, reinforcements still hours away. "We hold our ground," Cole murmured. Then something unexpected happened. Kodiak, instead of continuing to guard the door, suddenly ran toward the kitchen side window and barked sharply. Cole pivoted. "What is it, boy?" Evelyn moved beside him and peered through the narrow plank gap. Movement. Another one, coming from the side. Cole joined her, angling himself so he could see without exposing his face. A third attacker emerged into view. This one looked different from the others. He moved with a rapid, almost erratic style, stepping lightly across the snow despite wearing heavy winter boots. He was younger, maybe mid-20s, with very short black hair visible beneath his hood, and a thin goatee outlining his jaw. His features were sharp, fox-like, his eyes wide and bright with a restless energy. His jacket was slimmer than the others, the kind used by climbers rather than tactical teams. He scanned the cabin with quick flicks of his head, as if absorbing every detail in an instant. He carried a compact tool bag, which he set down while muttering something under his breath. Tara whispered, "He looks different." "Specialist," Cole said. "Probably break-in expert. They brought him to open a blind spot." The man removed a collapsible metal frame with joints, assembling it into some sort of angled rig. Cole recognized it, an improvised leverage jack used to create separation in tight structures without drawing explosive attention. "They're going to wedge the east wall," Cole said quickly. "They want multiple breach points." Before Evelyn could respond, a loud metallic whine rose as the device engaged, pressing against the cabin wall. The wood creaked sharply, then groaned again. Inside the cabin, the pressure felt physical, like the air was tightening, pushing them inward. Tara's breathing grew faster. "Cole, what do we do?" Cole assessed rapidly. "We slow down that wedge. If it opens, they'll flood the cabin." He grabbed the steel pry bar again and moved to the storage cabinet. Inside was a thick coil of industrial rope and several metal clamps. He pulled them out, working fast to create a makeshift tension brace across the interior of the east wall. Evelyn helped, holding the rope taut as Cole looped and anchored it between two interior beams. Tara held the clamps, passing them to Cole without hesitation, despite her shaking hands. Kodiak kept his eyes locked on the front of the cabin, making sure the masked man didn't attempt a sudden entry. Seconds stretched. Snow fell harder outside. Then the next strike hit. The back wall shuddered from a synchronized push. The east wall creaked under the wedge, starting to separate by a fraction of an inch. "They're coordinating," Cole said. "They're trying to overwhelm us on all sides." Evelyn's jaw set. "Then we hold all sides." He tightened the brace further. The wall's movement slowed. Another heavy strike sounded from the rear, another creak from the east. Kodiak barked, turning toward the door again. The masked man outside spoke once more, his voice calm despite the escalating assault. "We're coming in, Cole." Cole braced himself. The assault had begun, and the cabin had only minutes before something gave. When everything was finally over, when the storm calmed, the danger passed, and the long night gave way to a quiet dawn, there was a moment where even the wind seemed to bow in stillness. A moment when Cole, Evelyn, Tara, and Kodiak realized that survival wasn't just about strength, skill, or courage. It was also about something deeper, something unseen. Because sometimes, in the coldest nights of our lives, the warmth that saves us doesn't come from a fire we build, but from a hand God places over us, even when we don't realize it. Sometimes it's a stranger showing up at the right time. Sometimes it's a loyal dog sensing danger before anyone else. Sometimes it's the instinct that whispers, "Go left," or "Look again," or "Hold on just one more minute." And sometimes, it's simply a miracle dressed as coincidence. In our everyday lives, the storms may not be made of snow and wind. They may come as loss, sickness, loneliness, or fear. But the same truth remains. God does not abandon us in the cold, not in Frostbridge, not in your home, not in your heart. If this story touched you, even a little, I encourage you to do 3 simple things. 1. Share it. Someone you love might be going through their own winter, silently praying for warmth or hope. Your share may be the small miracle they need. 2. Leave a comment. Tell us what part of the story spoke to you. Your words may comfort another soul, reading quietly in the night. 3. Subscribe to the channel, so you won't miss the next story of courage, faith, and the quiet ways God works in our lives. And finally, may God bless you. May He protect your home, steady your heart, and guide your steps through whatever storm you're facing. May His light find you, even in the darkest winter, and lead you toward a dawn filled with peace, warmth, and grace. Thank you for being here. Until our next story, God be with you.